Hey, Spider-Man No Way Home came out like last week and I'm still freaking out about it. So I got my friends here and we're going to talk about it. And just a discussion, podcast format type of video like we did a few weeks ago, talking about TMNT AAA video game, theoretically, what studio should make that game. We're taking that approach again, but this time we're talking Spider-Man No Way Home spoilers, what we want to see for the future of Spider-Man in the MCU and on film. And I have popcorn here, I have water. So if you hear me snacking out, I apologize, but just deal with it. Let's go. Let's just hop right into it. Let's not prolong this any further.
Now, before we continue, again, spoilers. If you have not watched the movie, go watch it and then come back to this video.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Look, if you, if you're watching to this point and I say something like, I don't know, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are totally in this movie, then it's your fault. This popcorn's really good. So who's gonna spill first? Okay, I'm gonna be the one gushing about this movie for like 20 hours straight, so I'm gonna let you guys say what you have to before I take over.
All right, then you go first, slimy boy.
The fact that the Daily Bugle's of news is a newspaper place, it's great, and I'm glad to see Jameson actually reporting on stuff too.
Yeah, that was really cool. I like the MCU's take on the MCU's wait, what? I love the MCU's take on Jameson. Excuse me. I'm sorry, this popcorn, I'm telling you, it's got my head in another world. The opening was great. This is like something that I didn't really realize until after. You can literally watch Far From Home and No Way Home back to back. There's not a lot of MCU movies where you can do that. A lot of the time you have to watch the crossover movies in between to get to the sequels, but I don't know. It's like directly picking up where Far From Home left off. And to me, I think the tonal shift, because this movie takes itself a little more seriously than the previous two, it feels like a natural shift. It still feels like it's part of the Homecoming trilogy, but it's bridging the gap between lighthearted fun and the maturity that we expect from Spider-Man stories. I think it does it gracefully.
I love how after when Peter was trying to figure out how to get his friends into the same college as them, he goes to Doctor Strange, and of course he's happy to oblige to help. But then after when Peter was just biting off more than he can chew because he wanted everything just so it can help him out instead of worrying what's gonna be better off in the long run. And honestly, I think it's a good life lesson because it shows that you can't have everything that you want. Like, you can't just wish everything to be what you want exactly, because then there'll be consequences for whatever you're trying to get specifically. So I think it's a good message for that one, actually.
And that's the right word to use, is consequences. That's a word you'll hear thrown around a lot in the Spider-Man fan base. There are a few people responsible for the whole... that's another word you'll hear, is responsible. But there are a few people that are responsible for the discourse that comes with Tom Holland's Spider-Man, starting in Homecoming specifically, about he has a lack of consequences. Where I stand on the matter of that being the case, I think it's a weird statement to make. He does suffer consequences. They're just not, as hard-hitting consequences as you come to expect with the Spider-Man story. So I get the concern, but you can't say they're not there at all. I do stand by saying that the consequences displayed within No Way Home are much greater. They hit better, they hit harder, because it's stemming from a more relatable standpoint. Like the whole story about MIT, getting accepted into that school. Oddly enough, this week I've been under a bit of stress applying to, schools and transferring colleges, and it just really hit at a time in my life where me and Peter Parker are kind of like on the same timeline in terms of where we're going in life. Oddly enough, like each installment to the Homecoming trilogy, me and Peter have kind of been on the same page. So it's kind of cool that I'm getting to grow up with this Peter Parker, even though, obviously I grew up with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield when I was like super little. Tobey Maguire, I grew up watching him, and I grew up watching Andrew Garfield when I was like in middle school, around that area. But this Peter Parker, back in Civil War, I was like at the same point in high school as he was, and now he's going to college. I mean, okay, I'm a little further in college than this Peter Parker, but the applications, and the acceptance and all of that I relate to that heavily. But yeah, that's just my little spill there. If you guys want to talk about something else, go ahead.
I love how the fact that when the trailer first dropped for No Way Home, a lot of people were speculating that, Peter was gonna get a lawyer, right? That lawyer is gonna be Matt Murdock, and everybody at Marvel was like, oh no, Matt Murdock is not in the MCU, he's not gonna be in this movie. And then when it came out, you see him right there with Peter.
Yeah, I honestly didn't believe that rumor. Like, I believed a lot of rumors, but that was one I was like, that'd be really cool, but I don't see it happening. And they proved me wrong, and boy, I freaked out. I really did.
All right, now we're for the villain, boys.
All right, what do you guys say about him?
All right, then let's see. We'll start with the first one who
okay.
showed up.
I love his performance. I love him as Doc Ock. The way that he did his performance in No Way Home was really phenomenal.
Who impressed me the most in this? Willem Dafoe, because his performance in 2002 Spider-Man, immaculate. Like, that's peak Goblin. It's like, how is he going to top that? And in my personal opinion, his performance in freaking No Way Home, wow. I think he did better than he did in 2002. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but I most definitely do.
I also watched all of the Tobey Maguire movies, and I can agree with that too. He did really well, especially the way that he got back into playing Goblin. Yeah, he did really good.
As for me, I can't really speak on that because I haven't really finished the rest of the movies. I've only seen, when it came to movies, I've seen the first half of Tobey Maguire's movies, and then for Andrew Garfield, I've seen literally nothing of them. Then for Tom Holland, I've only seen Far From Home and No Way Home. So I'm kind of late to the game of this. So I have no horse in this one.
One point I really want to tackle in particular, the Aunt May scene.
No.
It's really good. It's so good. It's one of the best moments MCU Spider-Man has had. But I hate to say it. There's one thing that I don't like about it. I say I don't like about it, but it confuses me. And it's not really No Way Home's fault necessarily. I don't really know what to blame. But going into this movie, I was like 100% sure with the other Spider-Man showing up in this film, we would get some form of clarification, mention, or anything of Uncle Ben just to put the discussion to rest. Because Spider-Man fans have been hungry to learn anything about Uncle Ben in this MCU timeline. Everyone wants to know what happened to Uncle Ben in the MCU. Does he exist? Is he dead? What does he mean to Tom Holland's Peter Parker? Because we didn't see the origin. I personally would like to think he died the same way he does in everything else. You know, we just didn't see it happen. But simply because we haven't seen it, so many people are scared that he doesn't exist, or he was a deadbeat and he walked out on Peter and May. And they're coming up with all of these, scenarios. So I was like, okay, let's see. When Toby and Andrew talk about Uncle Ben, surely Tom is going to be like, yeah, I lost my Uncle Ben too. And that's all we need. That would shut everyone up. But sadly, instead of clarifying Uncle Ben's status in the MCU, I think No Way Home complicates it even more. We know from the films anyway, the great power comes great responsibility line comes from Uncle Ben. I don't have a problem with Aunt May saying that. Reason being, a lot of people will be like, oh, why did you change that? Why does Aunt May tell him that? Like, that's Uncle Ben's line. To be fair, go back and read the original comics. Uncle Ben never tells Peter with great power comes great responsibility in the original comic. Stan Lee says it in the original comic. Speaking to the audience, he tells the audience that the lesson, the moral of the story is with great power comes great responsibility. Those words don't come from Uncle Ben. They come from the narrator. The movie, the original movie with Tobey Maguire, is one of, if not the first depiction of Uncle Ben saying the phrase to Peter, So in the original classic story, it's implied that Peter learns with great power comes great responsibility, even though he was never told those words word for word. So that's why I'm not upset with the MCU's portrayal being Aunt May being the one telling him. In the original comic, that line isn't said by a character. It's fine. You can pick either one to be the one to tell Peter that. The confusion comes in at this point because I haven't seen anyone talk about it anyway. Why is Peter learning this lesson this late into his career? Because if he's just now learning with great power comes great responsibility, think about it. What makes him become Spider-Man? There's nothing in the MCU that made Peter Parker become Spider-Man. If he's just now learning with great power comes great responsibility. He just got bit by a spider. He's like, oh, now I'm a superhero. Another thing, if you notice, at the end of the movie, when Peter Parker visits Aunt May's grave, Uncle Ben's tombstone is not next to her. It's just Aunt May. So does Uncle Ben not exist in the MCU?
Either that or he's probably still alive, but they haven't found him yet.
We're also getting the Spider-Man freshman year.
There you go.
Well.
And that was what I was going to bring up. That's exactly what I was going to go to next, was freshman year. They're going to show the origin story of MCU Spider-Man. I think it's just now I'm kind of scared for what the answer is going to be. An episode of What If did confirm that Uncle Ben exists in some universe in the MCU, so I guess it's safe to assume he exists in the mainline MCU as well. And of course, the questions that I posed earlier are all theoretical. I personally believe Uncle Ben existed and he's dead, you know. Maybe his tombstone was out of frame, even though I think that's kind of unlikely. Like, I looked harder the second time I watched the movie, and I didn't really see how Uncle Ben's grave could be next to hers. But who knows? Maybe it was just out of frame. If he's just now learning that with great power comes great responsibility, what lesson did he learn before he met Tony Stark that made him don the suit? That's what I'm curious about. So maybe instead of being upset with No Way Home for confusing that, maybe I should look through the lens of being excited to see how freshman year is going to explain that. We got to shift the topic now. What do we want to see from the future Spider-Man movies? Because seeing where this film ended, I thought it was perfect. The final 10 minutes of this movie, absolute perfection. You have Peter Parker seeing how happy Ned and MJ are, not knowing who he is, and he doesn't want to interfere with that. He's like, yeah, these guys have been through enough just being associated with me. We're leaving high school. We're about to start our real lives. I don't want to reel them back in. I want them to be happy, and I'm happy knowing they're happy. Let me walk away. And he does. He gets his own apartment. You know, he's down on his luck. You heard the guy in the background say, don't forget to pay rent. Very Peter Parker-like. He has a sewing machine, making his own costume, and he swings away in the night in a very classic 60s-esque Spider-Man costume, implying that the future Spider-Man films will be traditional Spider-Man stories. So what do we want to see in the future installments of Tom Holland's Spider-Man series?
I want to see Peter say, I'll give you rent once you fix this damn door. No, I'm kidding.
He has to. He has to.
For me personally, I want to see Harry.
For me, I want to see Miles Morales, honestly. I want to see how they'll tackle his personality in the MCU.
Yeah, I think what I would want, Harry Osborn, maybe Gwen Stacy going into the college arc and everything. I don't know if they're going to have these next 3 be like the final 3 with Tom Holland, or they want to do 6 more where they do 3 in college and 3 when he's out of college, you know, being an adult fully and all of that stuff. I don't know which route they're going to take it, but you know, ideally, say Tom Holland wants to come back. How I would do it, I'd do these 3, be as traditional Spider-Man as possible. And like I said, in an ideal world where Tom Holland wants to do 6 more movies, I'd say the final 3 after this college trilogy, bring in Miles, because Peter will be a fully seasoned hero at that point. Miles Morales can be bitten by the spider and he's suppressing his powers. He doesn't want to use them. He sees how some people don't like a world with superheroes. I'm guessing something crazy is going to pop off in Multiverse of Madness, especially bringing in the mutants into the MCU to where, you know, general public won't like mutants. They already have a distaste for Wanda for what she did in WandaVision. So maybe superheroes will have a bad rep. So Miles' dad is going to be against superheroes. Miles has powers, so he has to hide them from his dad. So he doesn't want to be Spider-Man until Peter Parker dies, forcing Miles to become the new MCU Spider-Man. That's how I would do it. I know that's like a lot. That's a lot to hope for, just stemming off of how No Way Home ends. It doesn't indicate that any of that will happen, but wishful thinking, some of that will come to pass, whether that's in the next 6 movies or just the next 3.
Or what they could do is they could do what they did with Marvel's Spider-Man, where Peter teaches Miles how to be Spider-Man.
For sure. I think they could either coexist or they never meet. I think you're right about them probably coexisting on the screen together, but I think Peter's eventually gonna die, you know, and pass the mantle on to Miles to be the main Spider-Man of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think that's a good chunk. I mean, obviously we can't talk about everything. This movie's so massive and packed to the brim of so much, you know, fan service and just great storytelling. We can't talk about it all in one video, but I think as for right now, I've said my piece.
I will say this before I say my piece. I love the fact that they had Andrew Garfield redeem himself by saving MJ.
I caught that too. I caught that in my trailer 2 reaction. Yeah, that's our No Way Home talk here. If you guys have any things you wish for the upcoming Spider-Man movies after No Way Home, leave it in the comments below. Let me know your general thoughts of the movie. Yeah, hit that subscribe button. And as always, I've been Geekly. You've been awesome. No, you can't do it like that. If I was gonna let you do it, we would have mapped it out. So I'm doing it this time, okay? So you shut up. I've been Geekly. You've been awesome. And I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Damn, you didn't go up on it.
Thwip thwip.